So thank you again for joining me on this daily market analysis. If you're on the session, do drop a message and say hi. Let me know where you're joining us from. And for all the regulars, a big welcome back. If you are watching this live, remember to click like and subscribe. And actually, if you're not watching this live, do remember to click like and subscribe as well. Daily market analysis, what I'll do is I'll go through the currency pairs, the major currency pairs, looking at how price has moved, looking at where it could head towards, looking for some possible trade setups. If you have any questions at any point in time, please feel free to put it into the chat and let me know. Okay? Now, a quick disclaimer. Any information contained on this webinar should not be construed as advice and is presented as educational material only. The contents of this webinar are not intended to be a recommendation to a financial product, so please remember that your objectives, financial situation, and needs has not been considered, and you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances. Now, with all that said, take that all away. What has happened in markets? A whole bunch of not much, right? What has happened? Not much in the markets so far. In terms of news, what we saw from yesterday was core durable goods from the US month to month. It was a minus 6.7%, revised from minus 6.6, expected a 4%, but released at a massive 9.9% on the durable goods orders month to month. But core durable goods, which excludes transportation items, was released at a minus 0.2%. It was a, where is it? It was a 0.5, got revised slightly downwards to a 0.4, and it got expected a 0, got released at a minus 0.2. So a bit of a mixed data here from the US, and that was released at 8:30 p.m. GMT plus 8. What we did see as a result of that, show it to you here, at 8:30 right there. Okay, so I'll move it just one before. Dollar index pushed up, pushed right back down, set right there along that 100.80 level. From that point, my view, what I expected to see or what I thought would happen next was for the dollar index to push back down as it formed that pin bar along that 100.80 level. It didn't, it pushed up slightly, continued to fluctuate, it pushed right down to 100.71, and then push right back up, and it's been consolidating right along this resistance now / turn support level. That inverted head and shoulder that we talked about seems to be trying to play out, but not quite. So I'll take that away just to clean up the charts a little bit. Okay, so that's where we're at now on the dollar index. Again, back to the news, checking what is up for today. We had the BOJ core CPI year on year being released. 2.1, expected 2.1 was released at 1.8. So didn't do too much to the yen, right? Didn't do too much to the yen. As you can see, the dollar yen sat right there. So this was released at 1 p.m. today. Dollar yen at 1 p.m. was just sitting right there. So it pushed up following that dollar is fluctuating, and it's sitting along just under 145 right now. So it's been consolidating. So like I was saying, a whole bunch of nothing markets have dropped a lot or moved a lot on Friday because, like we talked about, the Fed Reserve, Chair Powell from the Fed Reserve during the Jackson Hole Symposium was saying that it's now time for the Feds to cut rates in September. We saw a big move following that statement. Monday was retracement, A lot of retracements on Monday. Now it seems to be consolidating slightly, looking into possibly resuming the move starting from today, hopefully, but maybe later into the week, right? So that's what's happening on the US yen. For the rest of the day, we had just had German final GDP being released, was minus 0.1, expected minus 0.1, got released at a minus 0.1, so no big surprise there. No major news to pay attention to. We do have consumer confidence, but it's not a big change. So I'm not very optimistic about a big move today, right? In fact, a lot of the levels that we discussed from yesterday seems to still be valid through to today. So, a lot of patience required right now, but we can still look for some setups that could play out as price develops. All right. And in the meantime, like I said, hey Linley, how you doing? Hey Stefan, good to see you. Hey Ju Marinas, good morning. Welcome back again, Diana. Good to see you again. I will be very kind and I'll take the time to do pound Swiss franc as well. No worries on that. Okay, so with all that in terms of news, through to tomorrow, something important to watch out for is the Aussie CPI year on year. Aussie CPI has been rather tricky. This has been a rather tricky data for the RBA, for the Aussie economy, because it was, you can see that, let's go all the way down, it's been dropping, right? Through January, early part of January, it's been dropping. 4.9 to 4.3, 4.3 to 3.4, 3.4, expected 3.6, stayed at 3.4, stayed at 3.4, and then in April, it went from 3.4, since April, it went from 3.4 to 3.5, 3.5 to 3.6, 3.6 in June to 4%. Now, in July, or back then in July, from 4, slowing down slightly to 3.8. Taking the pressure away from the RBA slightly at 3.8. If it does show another slowdown in inflation growth, that's going to support the RBA to delay the rate hike, another rate hike, right? It is on the table. The RBA has said that if required, they will hike rates. But if inflation does go tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. from 3.8 to 3.4, going to support the RBA to hold back on its rate hike decision. I don't think we're talking about rate cut yet. They'll hold it steady. I think that rate cut decisions, if inflation does continue to slow down, could come end of the year as they stipulated, or early next year. Okay, so that's one thing to look out for early tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. GMT +8. Very, very early for many of you all, but just nice for me. Then with that, a whole bunch of other news that we'll talk about tomorrow. So with all that said, no big surprise, not expecting any big surprises here from the market on the fundamental side of things. All good? Any questions? Put it into the chat and let me know. And while you're doing that, let's look at all good. Any questions? Put it into the chat index and let me know. Right. So now you're looking at the dollar index here. It is look at all good. Okay, so yesterday we were thinking that and let me know. Inverted head and shoulder. So now you're doing that is going to push up to that 50% level. Okay, so yesterday we were thinking that it hasn't so far. So now you're doing that sitting right across 50% level. Okay, so yesterday today being the 27th so far. So now you're doing that right across. It's almost done. It's almost done today. The 27th of August so far. So now you're doing that right across. It's almost done. Is that better? Sorry. I just realized that, but I hope it's okay now. Let me know. Okay, sorry. I don't know why that thing clicked away. Um, hmm. Okay, good. That's odd. Okay, well, now that is good. Let me see, can I do something about this? No. Okay, thanks for letting me know, Ronaldo. Okay, where was I? Dollar index, push down, didn't do the inverted head and shoulder, stayed below 50%. Now, no inverted head and shoulder, take all that away. Dollar index, consolidating along 100.80, needs to stay below 101 to maintain bearish sentiment, right? Because there are no major news, so it needs to stay below 101. Because there's no major news, I would think that it would, if it does break lower, it will come down to that 100.55 level. Okay, breaking 100.80 could trade down to 100.55. Okay, so that's the view for the dollar. All right, I'll just zoom right out just to check. That trend line is done. That one is possibly what's going to hold price a bit lower, right? So we had that top here. We had that test, push down. So now as it sits along this point, it might sit around across a little bit more before breaking to the downside. I'm not expecting a huge move lower just because there's no major news. Could see it come down towards that 100.55 level. Okay, there we go. Now with that, okay, I'm happy with that. Now with that, then looking at the Kiwi dollar. Looking at the Kiwi dollar, we've seen yesterday, we talked about it. This was where we were yesterday, right? We were looking for it to trade down towards that 50% or in between that 38.2 and 50% level. It came down to 38.2 and then looking like it's pushing back up. So if you just shifted that right across, you would see that playing out. So I'll still keep this view or this expectation, right? But I might push it up a little bit just to give it a bit. It seems a little bit undecided at this point, so I want to give it a bit more space. So I'd say 6230, 20 pips to 50 or 45 to the upside. Right, consolidate. So it came down, tested 38.2, bounced off 6230, 20 to 45 to the upside. No big change there on the Kiwi dollar. Then onto the Aussie, very, very similar. Came down, tested that previous level in that area. So it came down, tested that point, pushed back up. So Kiwi dollar, I was very keen on this morning, right? This morning we were right here. As it bounced off and it tested that resistance, I was very keen on it to push strongly, but it didn't push as strongly as I expected. We're looking for it to continue up. Same thing with the Aussie. Test, bounce, pushing up, I would say that right now you would want it to break above 6810. You scroll, if I go to H4 and you look right across, right, there is a little bit of space here at 6810. Actually, I'm okay with that. We were talking about this earlier on the stream. We were chatting about it. It's still at that resistance. So I'll look for it to break 6810. I don't think there's a 75 pip move immediately. I think there's a good 40 pip move to the upside possible, but you want to see a reaction at 6.8 first. Right? What could or what is very likely to happen here on the Kiwi, on the Aussie, would be a test, reject, test, and break that way. Right? So we want to see a reaction there at 6.8. So Aussie dollar, I would say look for reaction at 0.68. Then you can look to buy at 0.68, stop loss 20, take profit 45, 40 to the upside. Okay, 40 to the upside. Dollar to drop, Aussie dollar to push up. That makes sense. Not a given. It's not a given that it would break that resistance, because again, if you look at this, the last time came to this area in July. Zoom back in. You can see that it tested, pushed back, tested again, came close again, and then came right back down. Right, came right back down. So it could very well test, come back down, test, close, and then come right back down again. I don't like a counter trend at this point. You definitely want to be a little bit more careful on the Aussie dollar because of the CPI tomorrow. If it does come out at a 3.4% or lower, that could bring about some weakness on the Aussie, but 3.4 is still above its expectation or its target level, and it has been climbing very strongly. So a counter trend would be a very big counter trend. If you are, it's end of the month, if you have that risk capital to try and scale into, it sits there, you might be looking at a double top, a test and a reject, 6780 right here, stop loss of 20, 25, and then take profit. I don't see it coming down all the way. Right, that's the thing. That's why I'm not so keen on a counter trend at this point, because it does look like this is the area where it could stop at. Well, okay, let's look at it this way, is that if it sits along this area, like it's pushing down now, then you would look at a counter trend as if it breaks below that 23.6, this whole area, 6740, 25 to 40 to 50 to the downside, 61.8 and 50. Let's put in our levels there. So you look at it to come down to that 50% level. So you could be looking at that. Yeah, it's a bit undecided right now in this point. So that's what you would be. If it sits there and it pushes up, breaks that resistance, you look for the upside, counter trend, look for it to come down. It's going to be dependent on the CPI number tomorrow as well. Actually, now thinking about it, what I think could happen is that the Aussie dollar sits there, pushes down. I actually kind of like that. The more I look at this, the more I like a possible retracement on the Aussie dollar. Because if you think about it, on the 31st of July, when it was went from 4.0 to 3.8, on the 31st of July, where were we? Right there. That was that. So that pushed down. All right, we saw a good push to the downside. You might see it come down. I think that, I don't want to think of 50. I think a 45 move to the downside would be something you look for, like that. Right? So maybe we can also put that in CPI pending. You could also be looking to sell at 6740.25 to 45 to the downside. 0.6740, stop loss 25, take profit 45 to the downside. This is to most likely tomorrow. Okay, so I possibly want to see it test, then I'll update you guys tomorrow on that. It does look like it's right in the middle. There is a little bit of price to develop before it happens. Then onto the Aussie Kiwi. That channel didn't break, or broke out slightly, but it's back in, so we didn't have that counter trend on the channel. Take that away, and then as well. Okay, take the channel away because it's broken, it's moved right across. It's still sitting along this point. Now, if the Aussie dollar does drop, it looks like it's trying to do that, you could be looking for it to break lower, Kiwi to strengthen. Kiwi to strengthen, you could be looking at 1.0885, stop loss 30, take profit down to this point 30. It's 1:1. Why I'm putting it so low is just because I'm considering this level here. So I wanted to break the previous low to the downside, 1.0885. Looks like it could push down, but that's all you'll get, I think, in that area test. It looks like it's going to push down. So Aussie dollar, Kiwi dollar looking like it's going to push back up. Needs a bit of time. It's showing a little bit of a rejection right now. Aussie dollar showing that possible rejection. So Aussie dollar and Kiwi dollar moving in similar fashion. So Aussie Kiwi being a bit undecided. You would say that because it's been sitting in that kind of consolidation, so you're looking for it to break to the downside. You can look at it break down that way towards that previous low there. Right, so look for it to break that previous low towards the 5th of August low. there will be a 20 to 40 pip to the downside on the Aussie Kiwi. If you didn't get the sense of it, I'm possibly not super keen on the Aussie Kiwi. The Aussie dollar, we want to wait for the news tomorrow in particular. There is a potential for that counter trend move. What I do between these three, what I do like more is or more confident would be the Kiwi dollar as it bounces, looking for it to push back up. Okay, could be entirely wrong. It does look like it's going to come back down a little bit, but we're looking for the dollar to, if it pushes down, we could see that push up. Now, with that, it might not play out as well. Okay, so with that, we look at the pound dollar. Pound dollar, a little bit more straightforward, just a little bit more straightforward. It's still in that consolidation. It didn't test as low, but it did test that trend line. Right, it did test that trend line before now trying to push up. If you're on the pound dollar trade, very nice. If you're not on the pound dollar trade, then you're looking at this, finding that trend line as a support. We got realized sales on at 6 o'clock, but no other major news. I would be looking at the pound dollar 1.3225, a tight stop loss, 30 pips. Take profit, you could be looking at 70 to the upside. You would even go 35 just to have that 1-2. That'd be reasonable. Breaking above that previous high, 1.3225, 35 to 70 to the upside. Or dollar is still sitting right across. So a lot of things could change just because of where the dollar could develop and could break out of. Because of that, I'm actually thinking more likely the Aussie dollar could retrace if the dollar gains strength. Okay, so Aussie dollar to have a counter trend trade if the dollar recovers in strength. Pound dollar to push up if the Aussie dollar keeps weakening. So we're looking at 1.3225, 35 to 70. I'll change that a bit. 1.3225, stop loss 35, take profit 70. All right, so we'll come back to the Aussie, and I would actually change this a little bit. All right, so you're looking at 0.68 reaction and a CPI pending tomorrow. On the Aussie dollar, you're looking at a possible, really what we're looking for. Either, kind of like this a bit more now. It sits there, you see it break to the downside, or it sits there, it bounces, and then it rejects back down. Then you could be looking at 6790. Stop loss tight, no more than 20 pips. Take profit, you have that whole move. You could have that whole move down, but even if you went down to about that point, 60 pips would be reasonable. So that's how I would plan my Aussie dollar. Either it goes right down from here, breaks to the downside, or it tests and bounce, and then I look for it to reject 0.68 for a double top reversal back down. This will be highly in the case of a dollar recovery in strength and or a good slowdown in inflation growth on the Aussie CPI. Okay, so now back to it. The euro dollar came down. We were looking for it to test those levels there at 1.1160. It's came down, it's tested, it hasn't really bounced back up. It's sitting right across in consolidation. I will again push it right out and say 1.1180. Stop loss would be 20 pips. Take profit would be 70 pips to the upside. Okay, so relatively straightforward. Again, on the euro would be 1.1180, stop loss 20, take profit 70 to the upside. 1.1180, I would go 25 to 70. Right. Very undecided on the dollar index at this point. So sitting right across, test and break up. You see that the trend line is also likely to keep prices to the upside. Definitely not looking to sell down on the euro at this point. On the pound as well, not so keen on selling down. Then onto the euro pound, I was looking for it to test that resistance and that trend line for rejection. It didn't do that, so take that away. But it sat right there and slowly gravitated towards the downside. Now, if you look at this, that was before, this is the current level that it has found once, twice, and most recently this hour 3 times at 8450, and didn't like that level, right? It tested, bounced, and tested again, bouncing back up. Now again, euro dollar looking like it could consolidate first and then push up. Pound dollar looking like it's almost done consolidating and trying to push to the upside. So I think that pound dollar might move earlier. So euro pound could drop first. Now, if it does drop first, hey Naren, yes, Dinah was requesting for pound Swiss franc. So we will get to that. Looking at that point there, I think that if it breaks this level, 8445, tight, no more than 15. You got 20 there, you would have 45 to the downside towards that support. I think that's reasonable. Pushing down, that's good. Let me just check a couple of levels. I don't need that. Fine. You don't actually need this and this point, right? So that resistance is holding. If it breaks, if the pound dollar pushes lower, I could see this drop. Pound, euro sitting, everything's sitting right across because this guy is sitting right across and threatening to push back up a little bit. Right, and if you look at this, I know I'm harping on the dollar a little bit because it's just not decided on what it wants to do yet. Look at that. Just in that point, it could. What I actually anticipate the dollar index could do is do that and then come back down again. All right, so we're going to put in that point as well as another level. 1.101.10. Yeah, I changed that a little bit. 101.10. Test and reject. So this area is going to be crucial. Also because of that point. Okay. So now with that, then euro pound to the downside. I do like it, but it needs a bit of time because of the contradicting move between the pound dollar and the euro dollar. But with all that said, right, Kiwi I'm a little bit happy with. It's a bit undecided. Aussie dollar, we're looking at a counter trend move. You guys know I don't like counter trends, but we're looking at counter trend move, especially with the CPI tomorrow. Aussie Kiwi, very undecided in consolidation. Pound dollar showing some potential for the upside move. Euro dollar in that tight consolidation. Euro pound threatening that downside. It's all fine, not very exciting. The big ones that I've been trading for the last 2-3 weeks now is the yen and gold in particular as well, right? So yen, we were looking at it to push down. Let's take all that away first, right? So yen, we were looking for that to push down. It didn't happen. We take that away. Now that it's pushing back up again. Now we don't need that. And for this one, we're looking at it at that 61, approaching that 61.8 level, right? So the yen, you look at this, it's been on that big downward move. It's tested, drag that right across, and that's my low point, right? So it came down, sat there, push back up. Now, it looks, you might be, I think we talked about this earlier this morning as well, you might be tempted to try and sell the yen down, but it's got a small upward channel to the upside, right? And I wouldn't even rule out the chance that the yen could push up towards that 146.50 level, right? I wouldn't even rule out the chance that it could push up towards that point. It's at 145.10 now. If it breaks above that 61.8, which is not very far away, it could get up to this area before possibly showing some downside move again. I don't think it is the end of the downside for the yen, but I think it is a healthy retracement that we're seeing right now. Okay, so you can see that from this move down, we've got resistance coinciding at 61.8. We have this point here, 50% at 146.36. And then we're looking at it to break that short-term level. That's what I'm looking for. So if the yen, what you're looking for, well, what you're looking for is a test and a reject back down, or test and a reject back down. I'm still looking to sell the yen down. I'm very keen on that. Just waiting. You're looking at 145.10, stop loss 35 pips. And you know, once the yen drops, it has a big move to the downside, 150, or you're looking at 146.20, no, 146 dot, oh, break and reject 146, give it a bit of space. You'll be wide at 50, and then you got a big move down to 40, 250 to the downside. Right? So yen has that big potential for that big move. You're looking for a test and reject back down. So nothing on the yen yet. nothing on the yen yet. Wait for retracement to complete before looking for selling that potential. Okay, could retest 146 area. Yeah, 146. There we go. Yes, I can look at Swiss yen as well. No problems. Euro pound, is weaker than pound dollar, and also pound dollar climbing. Yes, euro pound could retrace up to fair value before pushing. It could, but I don't see it retracing too much. I think that if anything, it might just sit there before pushing down. Ronaldo likes the euro pound idea. Room for bearish, still big. Yep. So that's what we're looking for on the euro pound. Thanks for that. Yen retrace, looking to reject. Euro yen didn't break, pushing back up. Because the yen is pushing back up, the euro dollar is still sitting relatively across. So euro yen climbing because of the yen, the US yen. What I'm also looking at here is that level. So might test and reject this point, or at the point of this level here. Okay, so euro yen, I'm looking for it to either test and reject or test and reject there. And I kind of like that a little bit more, because once it breaks that trend line, it could push all the way back up. So I kind of like that a little bit more, where we could be looking at a test and reject on this nice round number of 6.2 as well. So 6190 stop loss would be 40 pips. Take profit could go down to 110 to the downside. Okay, so that's what I'll look out for on the euro yen. Pound yen, again, didn't break. Take that away. Trend line holding it up. Resistance up there. You can see that this, again, resistance that was rejected on the 16th of August, rejected again on the 22nd, and rejected again on the 23rd. It's climbing up to that point. All right, so it's done it once, it's done it twice, it's done it 3 times. What would we be looking for on the 4th time? 61.8 seems to be holding strong. What I want to see at this point would be a test and reject of 192 actually, right? A test and reject of 192. So you'll be looking at 191.75, 50 pip, 40 pip stop loss. You could be looking at 120 to the downside, right? So you're looking at a test and reject back down that way towards that trend line, and it's been working out quite nicely. So that's what I will be looking out for. If it breaks that trend line, then we have a big move to the downside, but it looks like it's squeezing up. Horizontal resistance, bullish, slightly bullish trend line to the upside. It's squeezing right across. So it looks like it could test, reject. If it breaks that trend line, we've got a big move to the downside. Either driven by the pound dollar breaking lower, or the US yen breaking back down. That's going to drag the pound yen back down. Okay? Then, with that, we look at the US Swiss franc, highlighted 84.84. 4.5 as an interim support. It's sitting right across, right? It's sitting right across because that's still sitting right across with the potential for the downside. Got that potential for the downside, but that 8445 level is holding, or 8440 level is holding. And I'm not too keen on doing anything on the Swiss. Nothing for now, looking for reaction 8445. It's still there. We're still at the same point. We're still waiting for a reaction. This was where we were. This was where we were yesterday. It's gone down slightly, it's gone up slightly, it's sitting right across, it hasn't done too much. So we'll wait for it. Okay. Then on to the US CAD. I think Ronaldo, if I'm not wrong, I think Ronaldo, if not someone else, was asking about selling the US CAD down. Big support level here at 1.3645. You see that it was from back here in March, where we saw it test and bounce. So it's come down towards this point. I'll still hold this expectation for that downside at 1.3450. Zoom in a bit. 1.3450. 20 pip stop. 80 pip take profit. And it's fair. I think there might be a bit of a hesitation around here. Right, so even if you went for a 20 pip stop and a 40 pip take, that would be reasonable as well to the downside. But what needs to happen is you want it to test, you want the dollar index to break, right? There are no big news here on the CAD. So any move on the US CAD is going to have to be driven by the dollar moving to the downside. So take that all away for now. What you want to see is for it to break that support and push down towards 1.3410. Okay, so 1.3450, 20 to 40 to the downside on the US. We're looking at that. We're looking to sell down from 1.3450 20 to 41.3450. Stop loss 20, take profit 40 to the downside. Okay. Yep. Okay. Then now, before I get to gold, let's answer some questions. I wonder why. So Diane's asking. I wonder why Swiss doesn't move with other currency moves, but Swiss not so much. There is no major news, and the Swiss tends to follow the dollar. No major news on from the SMB. The Swiss franc tends to move more either because of the dollar correlation or the big news from the SMB. Apart from that, it just follows. It used to move a lot also with inversely with the euro dollar, a bit less now, right? But it does still play a part. So it does get pegged, not really pegged, but it does follow many different other related correlation to many different other pairs. That's why it has a lot of counteracting moves on the Swiss franc. That's why it sits, a lot of times it sits right across, and then you see a lot more tails and spikes on the Swiss franc. Does that answer your question there, Diana? Okay, now once we have that, we look at the pound Swiss franc. where is it? Pound Swizzy. Okay, haven't looked at this for a long time, so let's clear out the charts. We have a resistance up here. We have a support down here. Just in these two areas first. Now the question you would have is, if the pound dollar is going to push up, could it pull the pound Swiss franc up? You got a next level up here. I am actually looking at this and I'm thinking that between these 2 points, nope, done. It's pushed up, it's sitting right across. It's right, it's actually, it's funny that Dinah was asking about this and Naren is asking about this as well. It's right in the middle of that support and resistance. So I don't see anything really shouting out at this point. If anything, I would say that what looks like a more likely scenario is to see it test that resistance and reject. Right, a test and reject. It's right in the middle, so it's right in the middle of support and resistance level. Best move, because it's been, could it break up? Yes, but it depends on what the pound dollar is going to do. So I would say look for a reaction at that resistance of 1.1240. You have that upside move, but I think a more likely scenario is a test back down. But for now, I would not do anything on the pound Swiss franc. Okay, maybe you guys can tell me why you're so interested in that as well. Oh, GS recommended long. GS recommended long, and you're asking me. Nah, I think we're gonna see what happens at 1.1240, anticipating that you're gonna see what happens there, and also on the pound dollar. Pound dollar sitting right across. A small move up towards that resistance could drag the pound Swiss, my pound Swiss franc a little bit higher, but that's a good strong resistance. I would actually be more tempted to look for rejection, either that mainly at the resistance there. Dinah's looking for a short, but not sure yet. Yeah, it's right in the middle. I don't, nothing screaming out at me, but I would, if this was a pair I would trade, then I would be looking for reaction at 1.1240. Okay, then I hope that confuses you even more. Let me know, put it into the chat. But with that, where's my pound Swiss? Oh, Swiss franc. Oh, wait, Swiss yen. Okay. Then on to the Swiss yen. With this was back in the day in July when we talked about it. Now it's right across with a big level here. And it's pushing back up 1.172 is a nice round number to consider. So it could very well push up towards 172. Yen is showing a bit of rejection right now. So Swiss yen, US Swiss franc is sitting right across. So whenever it sits right across, it could really break or spike out and then come right back in again, or spike down and come right back up again. So on the Swiss yen, what you possibly want to see, and I hate telling you wait, but that reaction is quite crucial at 172. It's at 171 right now. I wouldn't buy it up. You could do a scalping trade. Look at it on the 15. No, I wouldn't even do it on a short term. I would say it would take a while. It might take a while to get up to that resistance. Then we possibly look for it to come back down. Also because I'm looking at the US yen really coming back down despite its retracements. I'm looking for it to test and reject. So that's kind of putting that bias across all the other pairs where I'm looking for it to test and reject back down. So I will look for it to test and reject 172 to push it back down again. Okay. I like the Swiss franc, the Swiss yen a bit more than the pound Swiss. That's just a bit too far away. Then now looking at gold, right? We saw gold highlighted this on the Discord channel as it bounced off this point at 2505, 2505. I did a quick scalp, I think from 2508 up to 2516. Closed out. Also, fortunately, now as it comes crashing back down, so I closed out with the thinking of this stream in mind. So it's pushing right back down now. My first thought when I was sharing this in the group on Discord was that it should come down to 2500 and bounce. With the way it's moving now, I actually think that it could go even lower. Right, so I'm looking at 2500 or even I don't think you'll come down to this point. I think 2500 would be fair. Right? So what I'm looking for on gold would be a retrace down to the 2500 and I'll look for a bounce. Similar to what I did here at 2508, I look for it to bounce, test and reject 2500 for a bounce back up. Okay, so gold could retest 2500, look for bounce. If you're looking for a bounce from 2500, then you'll be looking for it to go back to 2515 first. This was where it reacted the most. You're looking for it to get up to 2515. You're seeing it bounce right now, but I think it might come back down a little bit more to 2515. Alrighty, look at dollar testing and rejecting, not very happy there. It's still forming a decision in this triangle. And it's odd that you're seeing the dollar push up and you're seeing gold push up as well. And that's why I think we might see a little bit more of a downside push. Everything else is moving as planned. Diana says looking for short on the Swiss yen at 171.50. About there. Makes sense. Would see how US yen does first. Definitely. Okay, so again, I hope you found this session informative. I hope it guides you with your trades through today. We will be back tomorrow again for the daily market analysis. If you have any questions, put it in the chat and let me know. I'll keep this stream running for a little while more. We'll see if any trade setups comes around. If not, please trade well, trade safe. Thank you, Stefan. Appreciate that. Take care now. Bye-bye.